Okay, hello. Welcome to Film Roundtable. My name is Erin Weil, and I'm coming from New York and a co-founder of Film Roundtable. And today we have two lovely guests we've been working on trying to get on for a while. They both have been on in the past, but they're back again. And they're good friends. And we have Rachel Morrison, who's director and cinematographer. And we have Rina Yang, director of photography. And yeah, they just finished doing a film together called Flint Strong, which looks amazing. I love Brian Tyree Harris so much. He's so incredible. So that's looking forward to that. And yeah, and it was also a film that Rachel was prepping before COVID, and then they had to stop. So this is like 2.0 version with different creatives that she was collaborating with in the second round. So it'll be fun to talk to them and see how, what's up in their lives. So thank you.
Brian Tyree Henry, just to put it out there.
Oh, Henry, right. Yes.
And he's the best.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's great. Okay, well,
Rina, nice to see you. Nice haircut.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you. I just feel like it's been ages. I just forgot that I had long hair on the anyway, appearance chat aside. Yeah, well, hang on. We finished Flint in August?
Yeah, I think that's right. End of July, beginning of August. End of July.
Well, 6 months. It's like
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, time fucking flies.
Really fucking does.
Yeah, I mean, you were in Toronto prepping first, like round one. Was it 2018 or 2019?
It was 2020 by the time we were actually prepping. 2019 when I first very early started, and then winter 2020 was when we were on the ground in Toronto, and then we shot the 2 days in Flint, and then the world shut down.
Yeah.
And it was a wild few years for everyone.
Yeah.
So you had 2 days of shooting, of principal
2
photography.
days of shooting.
Wow.
Yeah, we had shot the Flint unit. Originally, there was supposed to be 2 days in Flint, the bulk of the shoot in Toronto, and then 2 days in China on the ground, in part to shoot a night market, which is ironic if you know how the coronavirus started. So we were tracking, early days of Wuhan and coronavirus, just as it pertained to our China shoot. Like, I don't think anybody really could comprehend what was about to hit the world. And I remember it was Universal at the time, and the execs sort of sitting me down and saying, I think we're gonna have to pivot away from China. And we started looking at other, could we shoot it in India or South Korea, or what else could work? Because I wanted it to feel very different than Flint. And, it's just goes to show how little we all knew about what the world was going to look like. But
Yeah, I thought the morning show did actually a good job kind of setting that stage of like what was happening, and everyone was oblivious to it. So it's interesting that's what was going on for you guys while you were shooting too.
And that was round one. And then just, to jump through everything and to get to the Rina of it all, we, long story sort of short, ended up getting dropped by Universal, mostly because it was a risky drama with a not small price tag, and people were kind of panicked after the world shutting down. And so then we managed to get picked back up at MGM, which is kind of a miracle to get anything out of turnaround. And then one of our actors, who was amazing, had a pretty strong stance about the vaccine, and therefore we had to recast. And then we ended up with Brian Tyree, who's amazing, and ironically was actually one of my first choices back in 2019. So it sort of all worked out in that respect. But we pushed so many times that, in small increments, right? Like we got back up, but then we had to recast and blah, blah. And so I lost some of my original collaborators, which included my production designer, Kate McKenzie, and then my DP at the time, Kate Arizmendi, who'd both gone on to other things. And, I think Kate and Rina were friends. They both, respect each other and each other's work. And so I think it was Kate who first said, if I can't do it, you should hire Rina. And then, obviously sat down with Rina, I got to read the script, and Rina, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, and then I guess Yeah, I mean, like it was helpful because I already knew you, kind of hang out casually in LA, and obviously I knew that you and Kate were shooting, and I was shooting something else, and I was like, oh, the boxing biopic, sounds exciting, and Rachel and Kate, I was like, oh, they're gonna kill it. And then fucking COVID happened, and I was just so heartbroken hearing the story about how it got shut down and everything, and then it came back, and and then I think maybe Kate mentioned me, and then also we shared the same agent, Devin, Iconic, and then I think Devin also mentioned to Rachel in the house Rina. Then yeah, that was it.
I knew I knew Rina as a friend, and I knew her work, so it wasn't like it was a stretch by any means. And then obviously we had to talk about the film and make sure we were had a similar vision, and which we did, and then the rest is history. We made a boxing movie together, which is wild and fun, and we had a really great team on the ground in Toronto, and it's one of those things, like everybody said at the time that things happen for a reason. And when you have just lost the movie that you put so much into, and then, lose an actor that's a key part of that movie, it's hard to really hear that or believe that. And sure enough, like, I can't imagine the movie any other way, even things like we were trying to capture both winter and spring. And so the original plan was to shoot from March to May. But in reality, March was sort of the tail end of winter, and May wasn't really spring, summer yet, in Toronto anyway. And so when we got to do it the second time, we shot in the summer. We made a winter movie set in Flint in Toronto in the summer, which turned it a little bit into a Marvel film, but we got the best of both worlds. Like, we got to really make snow. We got to supplement snow with VFX. Our summer scenes are lush and green. Flint is a whole other story of how we got back to Flint, and got Flint for the right season. It was basically, you do anything you can and have to protect that element. But yeah, I mean, that worked out. And obviously now I can't imagine anybody but Rina shooting it. I can't imagine anybody but our production designer designing it. Like, it's now it is what it is. And then
it's like when you surrender into, how things change, then it always works out the way it's supposed to, and when you're not so attached to it. The first film I ever did was a boxing film. I was an electrician on Girl Fight in like 1998.
Oh,
Did you ever see that film?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was all women on that job too. And it was my first film ever. I worked as a photojournalist for like 7 years and thought I wanted to be a DP. And I got hired as an electrician and no idea what I was walking into. But it was all women on that job. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, it's so amazing to work with all these women. Is this what film is like? Which is why I got out of photojournalism. And then I realized that was like a one-off, in the 90s. So, but it's really beautiful to see it's changing,
Yeah, I think, since I wrapped Flint, I kind of keep feeling like, because, Rachel, you were the leader, and then it was so easy for us to hire a woman. But every project I'm doing since I wrapped Flint, it's like I have to advocate. Like, I try to hire, pay attention to diversity, but it's just something, I don't know, happened between 2022 and now. Like, it's now become like not like a cool thing to mention. There's like a little nervous energy if I mention diversity or something, but I miss that. Like, I don't even have to try, or try to awkwardly bring up, like, by the way, I feel like it's just all men right now, or like I try to hire a woman and it's like, so I was just thinking like, I'm just working with Rachel, and then like,
well, the amazing thing is, even the first round, like, we had our entire, all of our HODs, and this was pre-Time's Up. We had it was just a very inclusive film from the beginning. I don't think Universal at the time had ever seen anything like it, and now it's getting a little more commonplace, which is great. It's amazing. But there was just something about this film that really came together in that way, and it was a pleasure. Like, it was nice to see the world reflected a little bit in the filmmaking experience.
Yeah, and we had an awesome first lady, Sarah, who we adore.
Yeah. Sarah Buell, ladies and gentlemen, best first lady ever. She's so great.
Was she
Yeah.
US based or?
Oh, she's
Canada.
local Toronto, yeah.
Yeah.
When we set up the first time, it was her first feature, but she'd done a lot of television, and I'd heard just amazing things about her from everyone. And she's, you know, ADs, a good AD is really hard to come by. Like my experience with good ADs are that they're either very competent, but kind of a dick. I don't know. I wouldn't say competent and lazy in the same sense. I would say they're either really competent, but they're kind of aggressive, or they're very kind and you like having dinner with them, but they're not always the most on it. So to find somebody who's like organized and efficient and runs a really tight crew, but also you love them and you would want to have a meal with them and break bread with them and show them to your, you know, introduce them to your family. Like she's like the best version of a soccer mom, you know, rallies the troops in a positive way, but really like organized and keeps everybody one step ahead of the game. Which, you know, we were making a pretty ambitious movie for, I mean, it was like a big budget sports movie until it's not. But that big budget sports movie version still has spectacle and fight. We had 6 fights, I think. And it's not like we had a big budget schedule, you know? So it was like Sarah really, I think without an AD as strong as she was, like we would never have made our days.
Yeah, it was really great to feel like, you know, we were strong, like, you know, DP director for our steady team that we can really kind of, you know, collaborate and try and make things happen. You know, we like recreating like London Olympics and there's so many fights and, you know, so
yeah.
When is the film coming out? Do you guys have a date
Good
yet?
question. No, I do not know. I think in all of the reshuffling with MGM and Amazon, they're just trying to kind of get their selves figured out. And then Creed is obviously the biggest movie they've put out in a long time. So they wanted to get to the other side of Creed before they make a plan for us, which I can only imagine Creed doing as well as it did in the box office is gonna, you know, help our cause. For a while, we knew from the beginning when we got picked back up at MGM, but we had to sort of stay away from Creed. You know, they're not actually that similar, but they are both boxing movies and whatnot. Although for all the times I've been like, you guys, we're not that similar. Now that it went off and did so well, I'm like, we're really similar. You should give us all the marketing money you gave them and whatever. But so I think we'll find out soon. I mean, the movie, thankfully, like gratefully turned out really well. Rina's seen it too. Like, I think we're both really proud of it.
Yeah, Rachel did a great job, you know.
Rina did a great job.
Can't wait for the world to see it. I think, you know, it's very moving and important story to tell, which is, you know, you don't get many scripts like that in like, you know, in our lifetime. So it's, you know,
and Rina, this was your first feature also, right? You have done TV or have you done another feature before?
I've done Feature Nanny with Nikhil Jutsu, which is now actually funny enough, it's Amazon bought it, so it's with them, and I guess it's MGM. And then I've done TV shows and, you know, TV shows and before. But I spend my time like Rachel in between narrative stuff, doing commercials until the one comes in, and I think we're lucky to be in that position where we can kind of wait out and do commercials and, you know.
I think we should tell people, like, because I do think you and I have that in common, which is we're really pretty picky. You know, like I call it the power of no, but I think that that's almost the most important power you can wield as you make choices as an artist, whether it's as a DP or director, is like you get very tempted by the carrot. You know, when somebody dangles a carrot and, like, let's say it's a, you know, an $80 million movie and you've never done anything above 10 million, like it's tempting to be like, oh, I'm going to do it. It's an $80 million movie. But if you read the script and it doesn't speak to you, it's like all you're doing is carving out space, you know, to be pigeonholed in some area you never wanted to be in the first place, or like it's not. I don't know. I have obviously I've kissed tons of frogs, especially early in my career, but I try to be really mindful now about not just jumping at the first opportunity, but making sure that it's really right for me. You know, I mean, that's the hardest thing. Like, I feel like I'm getting scripts now that if they get to me, they're actually all pretty good, but that doesn't mean that they're right or that like they're additive in the world, or like, I don't know. But Rina, how do you choose your projects?
I guess the way I choose projects has shifted as I got older. But then, the things that haven't changed is, like you said, is it right for me? Also the timing, work-life balance wise.
Mhm.
And, have I done this kind of movie before? Because I try not to repeat myself. And,
Mhm.
and then obviously, like, do I like the script and characters, and who's the director, production designer, who's producing this, and all that. But I think timing is a huge thing that, if, say, like, if we've just finished like a marathon of shoots, then like, do you want to jump onto another film for 4 months? And it might not be the right timing, even if you like love it, because you have to be ready physically and mentally. And even if sometimes you really love the project, you can't give the best to the project, and you have to say no, because you're not gonna, I feel bad for whoever might hire me, that I'm just like a wreck walking into pre-production, so I think like timing is huge. Just like how round 2 happened, I guess it's it's timing also that I think, can't remember what I just finished, but yeah, I did Nani and the Euphoria, and then I think I was maybe like, I was gonna take a break, but then Rachel's film came in, I was like, hell yes, like this is the next one. Yeah, definitely. And then Devin was like, I think we're gonna take a break. I was like, no, it's fine. So, but it's the timing, when the right one comes in, it clicks. And I think you have the gut feeling, and you do the, kind of do a once over, and like, yeah, I'm sure this is the one, and you try and get it. Yeah.
It's the
And then,
full body yes, right? The full body yes.
Yeah, but yes. Yeah.
And then for me, I think first of all, I really commend that you and Kate and some of the younger DPs like carve out that space for yourselves, like the work-life balance. I feel like that for me, I don't know that I did a great job of that until I had a family. And then it was like almost out of necessity, right? Like you have to give as much of yourself to your kids as you do. Like I try to be, incredibly present with them when I'm with them, and I'm very present with work when I'm with work. It's maybe, my superhero. I don't know if it's a superhero strength or I'm a sociopath, but like I can dissociate. Like I can when I'm at work, it can be my focus, and when I'm with the kids, that can be my focus. But there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many days in the year, and so I do think it's so important to find that balance for yourself, for your family. But yeah, I think it's admirable. I was speaking to Kate about something. She's like, oh, I can't do anything because it's my best friend's wedding. And I think that's important. It's so important, that you don't, the most basic way of saying it is like, films don't love you back. No matter how good the experience is, no matter how good the film is, like that's not on your deathbed. It's not the like film that you're going to be talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that kind of desire to win the project, I guess work-life balance, I think for me it shifts. Maybe when I was in my 20s, and I'd just do jobs back to back, and it's like away all the time. But then I think as I get older, and prioritize time with friends and family, and I think things do change. Yeah.
But it also makes you better at what you do. I guess maybe that's another way of saying, like, for me to be able to give everything to my work, I need to then like refill the well somewhere else, whether that's going to an art museum or going for a hike, or like I've started surfing and boxing, but it's like, if I don't have, you need to have something to give, in order to give your all, you need to get back to your all again.
Yeah, self-care is the key. You gotta take care of yourself to be able to give to anyone else, especially your family, Did your kids come with you to Toronto?
They actually didn't this time. Some of that is just how complicated it's gotten to travel, and this was still the tail end of the pandemic. So, I don't know, I guess, is it over? Are we still in the past? Who knows? But like, it was still traveling. Like getting back into Toronto took, I think, 3 or 4 hours in customs. People were literally like falling off the elevator into the lines. And so it became sort of more prohibitive than it had been in the past. But also it was my first time, directing a feature, and it meant I really needed to be entirely present for this movie. And so I think had they come, they would have we would have resented how little time I actually had to give them, and they'd be displaced, and Wiley had just started school again and had a routine, and there was no part of it that made sense for us. It's also getting harder now that we have two. Like Wiley came on every project with me up until Cleo was born. He was basically like raised in a walk-in closet. I mean, literally between Mudbound and Black Panther, it was just, we were pivoting between walk-in closets, which for future moms out there in this business, like you don't need a 2-bedroom, you just need a solid walk-in closet for the baby. They make very good baby rooms, natural blackout curtains. But now it's tricky. Like he's got a routine, he's got school, he's got his friends, he's got soccer, he's got, his activities. So I think if I it a job that was really somewhere amazing, like Europe in the summer, they would definitely come. Maybe even Europe, not in the summer, we take them out of school. But it just, especially because it was my first film, I just wanted to be fully present to it. So they came to visit for 3 weeks, like we extended, I think, a school break. But that was one of the longest times I've been away, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you are definitely fully present in a way that you don't sleep. That everyone should know. Why is it like you sleep like 3-4 hours a day or something? And then I was like, I don't know how Rachel can function, but she can. I was like, wow, because I'm a power napper. Like I nap during lunch, like 10 to 15 minutes, so like refreshes my mind. And I try to sleep like 6-8 hours, but then Rachel's always between me, Sarah, Fastidi, and Rachel will be the first one to be awake. It's like Rachel was up at 4 a.m. texting us like, well, like, they're like, the girl needs sleep. Yeah,
4.5 hours is my sweet spot.
4.5 hours. Yeah, so that's a skill that I would like to apply. If I didn't have to sleep, that would be great.
Wow.
So something.
Yeah, I made Rina a shirt that says team power nap. Definitely earned her power nap nickname.
Yes, that's what I do.
Did you power nap at lunch?
Yeah, I tend to power nap at lunch, just like 10-15 minutes.
Right.
hiding like somewhere dark in the corner of
Or
the
this
stage.
like scout van between locations.
Yeah, I'm like a baby. If I'm like in the car, I just fall asleep. So it's like after it's like rocking. It's like I have to stay awake.
I used to work, when I worked on movies, I worked with the cinematographer Tom Richmond a lot, like a while ago. He's a dear friend of mine. He just passed, but he would nap at lunch always. He'd have a tuna fish sandwich, and then he would go sit someplace and do the power nap, and then come back together. It was really worked for him. I
mean, because it's like directing and DPing, you are constantly on when you're on set. You have to talk all the time, and I like in my offset, I don't talk very much, so it's a lot of energy. I have to talk to people all the time, and like the same for directing, and like 50 people want your ask you a question. Then what do you think? Oh, should we do this? And you have to pay attention and see if things are happening properly, and you have to so it's like your brain's like a super hyper, so it's like you need like a 10-minute 15-minute like shut your eyes, no one's talking at you. It's a good way to recover for the second half of the day. Yeah.
I think the thing that everybody keeps asking me, or I'm sure asking you, saying to me is like, it must be hard for you to shoot for another DP. Was it hard for you to shoot for me?
Yeah. No, because I get asked that question all the time. But who did I shoot for? So I shot with Bradford, and then did I shoot with someone else? But I mean, no, because I feel like we understand what we do, or what I do. So there's like a lot of the directors, just the directors can be very technical, and they could be a DP, but they're not DP. But then Rachel is a cinematographer, and it's actually, as long as you're on the same page, like aesthetically and tonally, I feel like it's it's more efficient way to collaborate. And like for example, just something boring, like we should go for slow-mo, and then I'll just set the camera to 70 shutter, and then just in case you guys ramp it back to the normal frame rate, and then I don't have to explain why, and the Rachel will be like, okay, yeah, that's fine. It's like, yes, like it's like saving time on set is it is a lifesaver. If you're saving like minute a day, and that's like a lot.
Or even like Rina got stuck in Buffalo for the first few weeks of prep, which was a nightmare. But like when I'm scouting, I can scout with her needs in mind, and I think like the pros anyway is like and if a setup's going to take a long time, I usually understand why, or like or if we're planning something and the sun comes out and screws us, like we can pivot together fast. Like I think there's a sensitivity to the needs. I make a point to try to let, especially my cinematographers, but everybody, like my creative collaborators have a long leash. Like nobody does their best work when they're being micromanaged, and I think I try to choose people whose work I respect and then let them do this thing that they do well. And obviously I'll weigh in about opinions, but I know that sitting on somebody trying to get them to do it exactly how you would do it, it's like that's not creative for anybody. Like that's just then you may as well do it yourself. And there was no point on this. I really wanted to focus on performances, especially on my first movie, but there was not a single day that I wasn't grateful to have a DP and not be the one navigating the like grid of lights above the Olympic ring or whatever else. One thing too is you were asking about like working together. I do like to operate, and Rina, like given you tell me, but it seems like Rina likes to be oftentimes riding the lights, riding the exposure. So like there's also a really nice handoff there where it's like I obviously don't operate dolly steady camera or anything like that, but like there were occasionally these like really emotional moments, and I'd be like, Rina, is it cool if I grab the camera? And she's like, yeah, do it. And it was like that was a really nice thing too.
Yeah, I like Rachel's operating, so because we don't have to explain to the operator. As our jobs, like directors and DPs, we have to explain to the operators, but sometimes it's really, like something like handheld is really instinctive, and I'm just happy for Rachel to jump in there, like because on this film we had a great lighting team, and I had a great lighting board up called Desiree, and then she gave me the wingman board, so I would mix light live. So so if I have Rachel operating and I can concentrate on mixing live, and so that was great that I can definitely trust someone on the camera, and I have to like a whisper in the headset like, oh, the pan left or something. So that was great, because like I actually didn't. I think it's maybe the first time I did live mixing for film, because I did that a lot on commercials, but you have to have like a really good lighting board up, so, which we had, and so yeah, I was kind of VJing. Boy, Rachel's killing it. Like it's really funny, because like I think like, oh, we should like shift left upon like a kind of lunge in or something, that she would do it. So it's like it's a bit creepy, like like but I was just thinking that it's like it's mad. So that was fun.
That's nice for me to go back and be like, you think we got it? And like Rina, I always this is when I was a DP, I remember that from the directors too. It's like it's the first person you go to be like, did you feel it? Like, did we get it? Really, did you feel it? And it's like, I would go to Rina right away and be like, did we get it? It's nice to have another set of, like, it really feels like team playing.
Because I think directors, they have a lot to think about, and you are very focused on performances, and sometimes you be like, do we get it? And I'll be honest, like maybe we should do it one more time, or maybe do it like this, and because you concentrate on the performance, and so that was really nice to be able to just talk freely about like we can do better than this kind of so there was no pressure, like someone hovering over me all the time like this is how we should like the scene. I think great directors are good at like delegating and trusting their crew, and and selecting the right crew in the in the first place. So
Do what I tell directors, you know, I was a producer for 20 years. So what I
Mm.
tell directors, especially ones that like to poo-poo doing commercials because they might think they're above it or whatnot. You know,
Mm.
there's a lot of downtime in between films, right? Most people can't go from one film to the next or one TV
Mm.
show to the next because you probably run yourself into the ground. And commercials are such a great place to be able to experiment, to be able to get practice, to try things you would never maybe try on to commit to on a film or something long form. Do you two find that? Like, do you like those aspects of just trying to work with different people? I mean, Rachel, now for you directing, you know, I don't know what kind of commercials you're doing, but like directing talent in different ways and trying different locations, you know, what do you
Yeah.
both think about that?
I mean, I think Rina said it earlier, but I can't agree more that like it gives you the ability to wait for the right long form project. You know, like I mean, there's other amazing things about commercials too, and like you said, trying out gear. You know, I'll test lenses on commercials. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
Test crew, test. You know, yeah, like to your point, test ideas. But really, it's also like that's what financially allows for the power of no, right? Like,
Mm.
especially now that I've made this film, I'm reading these scripts, the ones to direct or to shoot. But like when I read a script now, especially to direct, I'm like, could I watch this 100 times? Like I know what goes into, you know, I mean, I was literally pregnant with this film for 4 years. Like, and so it sets the bar so high that like it may be a year before I do something, you know, that long of a commitment. Hopefully I'll find something before then, but yeah, I mean, I can't just not work. Like, and commercials are really great for being able to buy yourself some time to make the right decision in the narrative world. And they're fun. I mean, I love it. Like, I love meeting new people. I love traveling. You get to eat well. You get to stay in nice hotels. It was like the first time I ever got to fly business class. Like, it's so fancy.
Yeah.
You know.
Even in this day and age.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know why there's stigma, like, against, like, you know, you're a commercial DP or you're a commercial gaffer, or, you know, maybe it was like that back in the days, but commercial schedule is as crazy as narrative. Sometimes we have to do like 20 setups, like, you know, it's not like luxuriously slow, you know, and you know, we have to make each frame pop, or it can be technically a lot more complicated in a way that we're not, say, like in a dialogue scene, like where maybe like it's like a mids and two shots, and you know, we have to have like a camera flying around from there to here, and then like, you know, the wide zoom in and end on the eye, or you know, so you learn a lot of like tech tricks, as well as, you know, like what Rachel said, we shoot all over the world and we meet the crew, and you know, maybe we can even test out the crew, and if we end up shooting a film in that city. And you know, a lot of crew who work in big commercials, they also do films on TV, so it's a great way to meet people. And I think especially for young cinematographers coming up, in my opinion, rather than doing, you know, say like 1 or 2 indie movies a year, and if you can't shoot, like say commercials and music videos, maybe like 10 or 20 a year, and I feel like you can flex your muscle and learn a lot faster. And then, you know, having said that, it's a different muscle, you know, to learn. You know, you're thinking about 1 second shot, but then for film, you have to kind of develop, and you have to think that, hey, this shot could last 3 minutes, and you know,
Well, and
think
also the bigger picture of the whole narrative, and like how tie together, and continuity. And I mean, it's a different skill set, but they're closely connected. Like you can not, I never understood the like, you know, well, we've never done a TV show, you've only done features, how do you do it? It's like, they're close enough. Like we're not, you know, they're very closely related cousins or something.
Yeah, but I think it's good to do, you know, both. But I kind of admire, and I don't understand people who can just do not long form back to back. I'm like, they literally have no life, you know. I'm like, wow, you know, I could not do that, because long form just take so much time and energy, and oftentimes, because like me and Rachel, like we only do the ones we really love, and we put everything into it, so we're just exhausted by the end of it, and I don't know how I could do another one straight away. But you know, so.
I think
yeah.
also, I mean, look, if there were more things we really loved, maybe we would do more things back to back. I think
Yeah.
it's also, they go part and parcel, right? Like you just don't
Yeah.
read that many scripts that
Mm.
are that good.
Yeah, the scripts are very hard to come by, and when there's a good one, there's like a great DPs, all the actors lined up to get the gig. So it's you know, it's very concentrated traffic jam.
Yeah,
get
it's
the-
interesting. There's so much content right now, but the good content is very few and far between, you know.
Yeah.
That's really shifted, I think, with the oversaturation of content. It's just a lot of like blah, you know, and like very few, you know, golden nuggets in there. At
Yeah.
least that's what I'm finding. I'm not that interested in watching much anymore. I did just watch that Indian documentary on the kite birds, which was really, really beautiful. Have either of you seen it? When We Breathe, I think it's called, or
Part of it, yeah.
really beautiful. The cinematography is really beautiful in it.
I really enjoy watching documentary in my free time. Like I can kind of switch off my cinematographer brain, but really enjoy the narrative and other people's like stories. But then, you know, a lot of documentaries these days have great cinematography in it, and you kind of, because they film, and I mean the language of cinematography is slightly different in documentaries compared to the narrative that you know, you're so used to how maybe people would cover the scene for TV show, but then you watch the documentary, you get inspired by, you know, how they put together a scene. I was like, oh wow, that's an interesting shot, or like, you know. And I watched Fire of Love recently. Actually, have you seen it? Like the footage is insane. Like I mean, it's shot on film and everything, but I was like these people are lunatic, but I also understand that kind of passion, and you know, just you're crazy for something, you just love doing something that whatever they love, volcanoes, you know, but like, you know, we love making films. So like I understand that, but the footage, you know, the footage is amazing, and it's kind of that kind of things kind of is inspiring. Like, oh, how can we do it like that in narrative? You know, yeah.
Rachel, do you think you would ever write something? Like, do you have any story ideas that you would like to see made at some point?
Like, it's the question of every meeting I have ever. I mean, I am in a very fortunate position where I have people sort of lining up to write me a blank check to make whatever I want to make. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to make. And the answer to the writing is I actually do think I'm capable of writing. I don't know that I'm capable of starting from a blank page. I don't know that I have the sort of work ethic to not be daunted by, like, you know, I mean, you really, writers, I think every day, these hours, they stay focused. I think I can't sit still long enough, as Rina can attest. Like, this is probably, I max out after like an hour, and then I'm running around on a buck dolly or a one wheel, or like, I don't well. But I'm capable of writing. So I think whether it was like rewriting or developing an idea with another writer where they're doing at least the first pass and then we're working together for the second or something, like maybe, but the bigger issue at the moment is I really don't know what story I want to tell next. Like, Flint spoke to me because, well, for a number of reasons, but there was something very relatable for me to put myself into it, and I believed in it, and I believed in the messaging behind it. And like, one of the things that I think I've come away from it with is like, even if it hadn't succeeded, it was admirable in its intent. Like, what it was trying to say mattered to me. And thankfully, I think we did succeed. Like, thank God. But I don't know. I'm trying to find what that next thing is that I feel like if I had to watch it 100 times, I would still get something from it.
Yeah, it probably just hasn't come to you yet. Maybe someday, you know, you'll be like, oh, this is what I want to create.
Yeah.
I mean, another great thing about working on Flint with Rachel was that we had those, Rachel had the freedom to change the scripts on the day, or like
I had a lot of support from Barry. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So I think that was great that no one was, because when you work on a TV show as a hired director, even if things aren't working on set, I guess you have to get permission to not shoot something. But if you could block and you are blessed to have a creative freedom to adjust the narrative, adjust the scene. I think it makes the film better, because it's something is on paper and then we're executing on set, and things don't always work, and we make it work. So I just find it so hard that if the director cannot adjust the script on the day, to adjust to the blocking or the so I find like TV shows like that is like something I don't touch because it's hard. Yeah,
we had a really unique, I mean, I hope I get this experience again, but it was kind of this amazing thing where, for better or for worse, I mean, it was scary and whatever. If it hadn't worked out, I'd be like, blame it on this, but because it did, I'm okay with it. But our execs went to WB on the second day of our shoot. So we made a studio movie with no studio paying any real attention to us. So we're kind of like, like Home Alone, like Macaulay Culkin, and like they're letting us do all this cool stuff and nobody really is weighing in. And we had Barry Jenkins, and I had been collaborating for years at this point on this, and he really gave me his blessing to make it my own. And and then I in turn let the actors, if the actors wanted to say something in a slightly different way or in a way that felt more right to them in the moment, like I gave them that freedom. And so it was a little bit of a we were just, you're just always trying to gauge authenticity and like, does it feel real? Does it feel right? Does it, and there was nobody saying it has to be delivered exactly how it is written, and nobody saying it just wasn't micromanaged at any level. And even like the stunt choreography, I mean, Ryan was I can't wait for people to see how incredible she is in this film, but like, she was such a trooper too. And we were riffing a little bit with the choreography on the day too. And like, she'd sometimes want to watch playback and be like, I can do better. I can sell that fight. I can sell that punch better. Let me go again. And so, or I would, if I was, or we would work with the Steadicam operator and just kind of find it in a really organic way as we went, as opposed to being so rigid in like, this is our shot list and we must shoot our shot list exactly how it's written. And this is our script and it was never dogmatic like that. And I think the result of letting yourself have a little bit more freedom to react and respond and create in the moment, it really worked, I guess.
Did you have, so was anybody from the studio watching dailies, or did they kind of let you just?
So our producer, Alicia Holmes, was also at this point at the studio. So she was sort of doing double duty as a producer and studio exec. So somebody was, but for the most part, I think she was also just supportive of us in the process. And like, nobody was trying to play it too safe.
That's great. Did you have an editor who was on set with you all?
He wasn't on set, but our editor, Harry Yoon, he was one of our costume designer, our editor, and there were some holdovers from the round one. Like, Harry's been in this since the beginning with me. He did the film Minari, and he's a beautiful human, and he was a beautiful collaborator, and he was definitely very involved from the beginning. So he wasn't on set, but he was watching dailies and he was reading scripts and he was giving me ideas, and more than just, he wasn't just responding, he was he was preempting, and it'd be great if we had this, or I think we should try an alt like and he was an incredible collaborator.
He was piecing together scenes and whatnot for you.
Yeah, I mean, he would send me scenes on Friday to watch on the weekend. It wasn't like we ever were in any one location long enough that we could like, we missed something, we were just going to get it there. We were still on the move a lot. So it wasn't so much like, hey, we need these 3 shots. There were very few of those notes. It was more just like, I think this is working really well, or I loved what you guys did here. And, but also just from day one in the edit, like, it was a really smooth post, which one doesn't hear that often. I feel like all I hear is horror stories about posts, but like, we had a very hard prep. Like, our prep nearly killed me. And most of that was, I think, there was this idea that we could maybe hit the play button after being paused for 2 years and we could just pick up where we left off. And I think nobody had really understood the full ramifications of inflation, and crew rates had gone up, materials had gone up, locations had gone up. There were locations that didn't want us back. I had new department heads, and so we started at such a deficit financially that it really put a strain on prep. And prep, like I've had other films, including round one of this, where prep felt really easy and great and light. And then you get into the shoot and you're kind of then you're like up to your neck and it's kind of a mess. And we had the opposite experience, which is probably in retrospect, the better way to go. But prep was really painful and stressful. And it felt like, what are we walking into? And then the shoot, it was like the clouds opened up, sun came out, the shoot went really well, post went really well. Like once we got past prep, we were smooth sailing. Is that fair to say, Rina?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we were joking, like, because we've done, the long form before. It's like, why is the prep for Flint so hard? We're literally like doing long hours, like, all week. And, sometimes the prep is kind of short and sweet. But yeah, it was definitely a hard one. Like, again, like 6 fights. And like, I think I was doing the lighting plans and, this, like, do the breakdown. And I was like, I've never written like drawn so many lighting plans for one project ever. And I was like drawing it, still not, I was like, still going, okay. I was like, wow. So it's like, when someone pitches the film to you, like as a log line, it sounds simple, but it was kind of like Rachel said, the sun, making the winter into summer with all the blue screens everywhere and many sets and locations, and it was turned out to be a quite complicated film to prep.
And also must have been so discombobulating to, because there's like pre-COVID and post-COVID, and it was like a different world to be like prepping a film. And then the world just changes like overnight. And then you're taking your experience from that and trying to bring it into 2 years later, in a whole different world we're living in, I mean, not only just like testing people on set now constantly, but like all the prices, like you said, inflation, Canada, which was a whole other level of, of protection and safety. And I mean, so many things. Like I can imagine that would have like really kind of turned those who went from part A to part B, like kind of upside down, because you had to really kind of repattern what you were doing in a sense, I mean, I'm sure it was really hard, like really, really hard. And then have new people who were coming on after not being on the first part, and adjusting to that, and the new people adjusting to what had already been done.
I'll definitely be in therapy for life from the whole experience. But I mean, it's like an episode of Black Mirror at times. And we some of our locations stayed the same. Like the location that we had dressed and ready to go when the world shut down, that was like built out. It was the Burston Gym location that was built out for 6 months, before they finally had to pack everything up, or maybe even a year. We went back to that same location, and that we were going to start with that in 2020. And we kept it in the schedule, and we started with it in 2022. So there was something, I think actually once I got to the other side of like finishing this thing that had been this cliffhanger for so long, then it felt like, okay, I could finally exhale. And it was like, okay, we're making this thing. And then it almost let it become its own new experience. But yeah, it was like a Black Mirror episode. It was very, very strange. I mean, I feel very incredibly fortunate, because I know so many projects that shut down and never got back up again. Like, to get anything out of turnaround is a miracle, but especially you're talking about 2 years later to make effectively the movie that we set out to make.
What did you shoot on?
We shot on the Venice. You guys were mini LF before? I think it was actually. It was Alex's first time round. But then I guess back then, Venice maybe didn't have Rialto. Both Rachel and I, by 2022, we'd shot on the LF and the Venice, and gone to DI and compared both formats before, and the difference is like once you grade it, you just don't notice. We like the ability to go Rialto mode for. We actually used to Rialto a lot for some of the boxing fights, and was it fights or like? Do you remember Crew kept telling us it's not fights? What was it? Well, Sarah kept calling it fight.
So she's calling it matches or games. It is fight.
Okay, fights. Because
Yeah.
we're just like being told that it's fights. Okay, so yeah, so we love the Rialto, and you know, I also like the internal NDs. You know, it's just something frustrating about. I love Alexa, but it's just like, why do we jump from ND 6 to 1.2 or like 9? You know, I love the like one stop increment, and you know, and so it's like if it looks the same once we grade it, then I like to, you know, take advantage of this and, you know, the abilities to go small and, you know, NDs. And so we went for the Venice, but then we did adjust the contrast level on the lenses with Panavision because you know, one's low con and one's like higher contrast. I think Venice is higher contrast, so we just went a little bit more you know, just to adjust to the Venice, because I don't really like the crunchy images. There's a recipe somewhere in the email with Guy Vicker at Panavision. We're just chatting about like difference between Alexa Left and the Venice, and like adjusting the recipes. There's also some kind of numbers somewhere that I will dig out for when the film comes out and people ask me these questions.
Basically, we re-detuned the lenses and you know, all of that. But we're Panavision. We had tested. I wanted bokehs that were pretty round. You know, and so you have some of these lenses ranging from Cooks to other ones that like are very specific with the bokeh. So that was with a range of Panavision glass, but mostly. Well, you can speak to where we ended up. I think it was kind of a Rina special concoction of glass.
With recipes, I mean, Guy was like, "You sure you want to go this far?" I was like, "I mean, like, yeah, it's fine." And I mean, like, it's holding. So yeah. So you know, this I will dig out the recipe, but yeah, we did. You know, we kind of adjusted the recipe to Venice, and then yeah.
There's sort of like Primos and H series and what other.
Yeah, those are ultra speeds. I think they were hero lenses.
Sorry, not Primos, Pana speeds,
Yeah.
H series, ultra speed.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I'm one of the owners of Black Wings. You know, I'm Brad's partner in the Tribe 7. So I know, I mean, and I know a lot about lenses. So I was just curious.
Yeah, they're great lenses. I got a set as well, Black Wing.
Oh, right. You do have a set. I knew that. Yeah.
They sound so cool.
Yeah.
Have you shot with them?
I've shot, I think I shot one commercial with them early on, and I think it was the heaviest version. And I know now they're, and I think that it was, I had a little bit of a hard time controlling some of the bailing flares and stuff. So it put me off. But I know that there are lighter versions now that I'm sure I would love.
Yeah, T and S, because I'm retuning my lenses to be a bit less, because I was like early buyers, and I you know, because I was talking to Brad and Neil, and then you know I was like got to shoot on the prototype when I was doing a Netflix TV show here, and then I had the binary, which was kind of, I think, like a mix of X is like the most crazy one, X and, you know, the middle ground. So I'm gonna retune it so it's a bit less, you know, so you can control it, because it's fine on like commercials, and I used to have it as like a flare lens. But then if I wanted to do something in a long form, I need something that I can control like for consistency, and you know, so I think I'm gonna retune it to be more like standard.
Well, and the interesting thing is, I mean, probably the biggest difference maybe from how I was originally going to shoot it with Kate and then how we ended up shooting with Rina is I was actually looking for lenses that had no blooming in the highlights. Like I didn't want to point at fluorescence and have blooming. And then that was actually Rina really, that was something that she really wanted. And so that was the direction we ended up moving. But I think that was also part of the formula, where it was just like, you know, and for me, I was at first a little bit like, whoa. And then I was like, oh, well, this is, Rina has a vision for this, and I'm going to support her vision. And like we landed in a good place.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of, I don't know, I like the highlights to bloom. I don't know, I'm scared of the digital looking images. And then, I don't know, because when you shoot film, it blooms. And, I'm not like, it has to look like a film, like shot on celluloid, but it's just something, gut feeling. I find the kind of highlights blooming like that just a bit more pleasing. So we did enhance that with the lenses with Guy at Panavision, and and then what else was? Oh yeah, and also slow zoom. Rachel was like, remember, we're like. She was like, "Don't zoom so old." I was like, "No, Rachel zooms back." Slow zoom back in fashion. Because I like using zoom, not in like a lazy way that like I don't know which focal length I want to shoot at, so I'm just gonna stick a lens zoom on. Like I never do that. Like I hate using zoom in that way, but I like using zoom in like a psychological effect way. Like there's a difference between dolly track in and slow zoom in, and and I was just, because we were doing like short list together, I was like, zoom. Rachel was like, what, zoom? I was like, I had to kind of protest Rachel.
Yeah, there are definitely like a few things that are almost like generational, and it's totally dating myself, but it's like, I think blooming highlights for me are like, I think of soap operas, right? Like I go back in time to like, all the cosmetic filters people used to put in front of glass, and I'd be like, and like our whole, it was like, we were trying to get so far away from that. And so then now they're back in fashion, it's just things that you have to almost reprogram your brain. Yes, Zooms were always, I'm like, why would we Zoom when we could dolly? But now we found a nice formula for the psychological slow zoom, sometimes mixed with the dolly.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In being conscious of time, because I know we wanted to keep this to an hour, I was curious, like, what is inspiring you both right now, like in life and your art? Any movies you've seen or artwork or anything you've read that you feel that comes up for you to share?
I mean, movie wise, I saw probably like so many of you, After Sun just like slayed me. I mean, I thought that movie was so beautiful and brilliant, and it felt like being inside one's own memory. I mean, I literally, after seeing that movie, I was like, I'm a failure. My movie's not After Sun. I saw the movie again. I was like, my movie couldn't have been After Sun. Like it was the different movies, but After Sun I thought was just incredible.
Yeah.
If you've seen that, Rina?
I feel like I've seen so many films this year for some reason, because after wrapping Flint, and then I was just gonna shoot commercials until maybe like spring this year, but then this film came, the script landed and I really liked it, so I signed on to another movie just before Christmas. So I kind of consciously took time out from doing any commercials, like, because I was just doing like a month or like 3 to 4 weeks of soft prep by myself on this movie, and I never have that kind of downtime. So I was, I've been able to watch a lot of movies during that time, and I mean, great movies, but great movies this year for sure. After Sun, amazing, British filmmaker, yay! And also, I've been watching a lot of old films, like really old films, like back in the 50s, or this. And then I've discovered that there's so many amazing Japanese movies, back in the 50s and 70s, and watching Bellini, and I mean, like old films right now are somehow my main inspiration. But also, I've just seen Close. It's nominated for international category Oscar. It's amazing. I mean, I was like, whoa! Like, I went to the cinema and everyone was crying. It's just, the execution is just like, nothing is like overly dramatized, but it really grabs you, and the performance is amazing. And cinematography is beautiful, but it's very simple, and it almost looked like they only used like 1 or 2 lenses throughout the film. And I mean, technical stuff aside, watched the movie after having watched so many films like over the last few weeks, from old to new, and I was like, wow, like it's just so simple. But then I'd love to do a kind of simple but intimate film like that maybe at some point, because I think it's sometimes it's nice to kind of do a simple one, step back, and I did Nanny, that was kind of like a thriller genre movie, and then Flint in a sports movie biopic, and then the next one is like a rock opera, like post-apocalyptic, very kind of stylized film. So I think when I watched Close, I was like, wow, like I'd love to make a film like that one day. That's what I thought, because it's just such a special. I don't know, it's a miracle when we have a great film, right? So it just feels like, well, I was like, how did they make this film? Like when you watch like something like After Sun or amazing films, it's like, wow, I guess I don't know how they do that, but yeah.
What
amazing.
country was that out of?
You know what, they were speaking French, but it's like, is it Danish, Denmark? Yes, some European, yeah.
I've been hearing such amazing things about the film. I haven't seen it yet, so
yeah, you're gonna be crying. Don't wear mascara. Wear a waterproof mascara if you go to the cinema.
Have either of you seen Claire Denis' new film?
Which one?
I don't know what it's called. I just heard a review about it yesterday on NPR. But she has a brand new film out. It's supposed to be incredible.
Oh, out already this year. Oh,
Yeah, I think it's just out.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never heard. Yeah. So anything else?
Yeah. Hold on. I don't have my I should have known the name if I was going to bring that up, but I thought maybe both of you had heard. So
No. Yeah.
yeah, well, what do you today's Thursday. So you guys have a relaxing couple of days coming up?
Well, I'm about to. I don't know what you're doing. Joe, you go first.
I wouldn't. Nothing. Being home with my kids, as much as I love it,
Right.
there's nothing relaxing about
Yeah.
2 children under 8, and Clea's 4 and wild. So, but no, I mean, I'm still looking forward to obviously time with them and boxing. I took up boxing to Mind of the Game, our boxing movie, and now I'm hooked. So
Are you still boxing?
boxing.
We have to mention, like, we both got boxing tattoos.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Did you get those after the movie?
Yeah.
Oh my God, are they the same? You
No,
got tattoos? Oh.
I just got like a girls boxing.
Oh, cool.
Rachel's got boxing gloves.
Yeah.
It might become a thing, like every movie that I like to do, and I'll get tattoos.
Yeah,
Cover your whole body.
I do think like when you make a movie in any capacity, that like it can be really transformative. It's like it's pretty wild what we do for a living, where you drop into a universe and a family, and like, whether it goes well or not, like it's still, I feel like you don't ever come away from a feature the same person you were when you started it, and it could be because it was god awful and you were emotionally abused. It could be because it was incredible, but you never come out the same.
And when it sinks well, you know what I mean? Like those connections are really deep.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think it's the process that stays with you, I feel like, rather than actually the some end piece. Like that's, I don't know, it's just my personal experiences that I think about the process of making the film, or making whatever we're working on, more than when we watch something. Somehow it feels foreign to me, that it's like, oh, did we make this? Like it's great, but then it's weird in a way that maybe I'm a DP now, I guess, maybe, I don't know, as a director, but when I watch something that I've shot, you really remember what we were doing, and what we were like at the end of the process. And like, do you feel that, Rachel, when you watch the film?
Yeah, absolutely. But also even just dropping into different cities, like spending 3.5 months in a new place every year, whatever it is, and like raising Wiley in a walk-in closet, like that is sort of the fabric of the movie that you've made in some way, shape, or form. Like I fell in love with aspects, obviously not other aspects, but of the South when I made Mudbound. It's just like the swamp and the like, who gets that experience? It's so magical, you know?
What state did you do that in?
My band was Louisiana.
Oh, it was Louisiana. Okay.
We were hubbed in New Orleans, but shooting about an hour outside of it. But you know, and I spent a year and a half of my life in total, maybe more, in Atlanta, you know, and Toronto. I now really like, I have so many great things to say about Toronto. And I would love the chance to shoot, you know, a film in Japan or in Europe. I mean, hopefully it's a long future in front of us, but I think that that's part of it too, is you really get to drop into a whole other place, and then create a family with the people that you're working with.
And I always love how wherever you go in the world, the people who work in their specific crafts are the same, but different, but the same in every country around the world. Doesn't matter where you are, which is such a beautiful thing about the film business, right? That the type of people who attract to different positions in the crew, and how personalities can be so similar when you're so far away, and different cultures, different upbringings and whatnot. And that's a really nice link about filmmaking, I feel.
Yeah, I feel that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So nice.
Your rock opera, futuristic sci-fi rock operas, that sounds awesome. I'm ready to get my tickets.
It's gonna be a challenge.
And you're shooting that in Croatia?
Yes, I've packed my suitcase today actually, and I'm about to fly off and give all my.
Were you able to get Tina at AD?
Oh, I think she's on. Yeah, I mean, I really tried to get her on, and then, you know, Jeremy loved talking with her, which is great. So
that's just to take it full circle. Tina is an AD that each of us worked with on commercials out of Slovenia.
Yeah. And she's an amazing AD.
Yeah. And so
she's going to be doing your film.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
touch wood. Yeah, so, you know, another great fast AD, you know, hard to find.
The women first ADs out there.
Yes. Yeah,
there's
great.
Funny, there's not really any in commercials, but there's a lot of more.
Kate Greenberg.
I worked with her.
I don't know her.
Kate's great.
In my world, my time in commercials, which was a long time, it was always men. There weren't really any female ADs. So many in movies and TV, but just not in commercials.
I know a handful in commercials.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. Not enough.
Not enough. All right, ladies. So nice to see you both. Nice to meet you, Rina. And we'll talk sometime soon. I'll let you know when we're going to be putting this out there.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, Rina.
Bye.
Take care. Safe travel.